Welcome back to a quick edition of the Jon Krawczynski Show. We're doing some extra bonus editions like this during the playoffs. We'll do his full show again next week, probably between games 1 and 2. But we wanted to do something coming off the epic win by the Timberwolves in an epic setting at Target Center on Thursday night. My goodness, so much to get to. But Jon, you've been covering this team for a long time. You were there for a lot of the bad times. You've been there through this great run of success now. Just, where did that rank? What did that feel like to be in the building last night?
I mean, it was incredible. I think of my time covering this team, and certainly Game 7 in Denver was the pinnacle, just given defending champions on the road, all of those things. But I think that Game 6 was probably the best home environment that I've seen. When you think about how loud it was in that arena, Jim, I've never felt it like that before. And the coolest thing that was evident was it was a very nervous crowd at the start because of all of the injuries, because of the dread that was setting in of here they go again, Minnesota sports. And then as the Timberwolves jumped ahead, then it turned into a thirst, a fervor, a trying to will this team over the finish line. And the sort of the way that this team and this fan base came together in a year where they have not always been connected, it was just remarkably satisfying to experience and to kind of see in real time. I mean, I'll remember that game for as long as I'm around, I think.
This is TalkNorth.com. If you like the show, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. Check out our sport. We have his best sports lineup in town. You got Russo and Lepanto on hockey, Gorg on hockey. You got John and myself on the Vikings, the Alec Lewis Show, Mark Rosen, Don Mitchell, et cetera, et cetera. But the Jon Krawczynski Show is one of our most popular shows at the network. But check out the network if you haven't already. We do appreciate it. And we are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Let's go down a quick checklist here. Just reactions. Jaden.
I mean, iconic. Seriously, I don't know that there's hyperbole for what Jaden McDaniels did in this series. He had a combination of confidence and bleep talk and all of that with backing it up in a way that not just Minnesota athletes, but name me another athlete that has talked as much crap and backed it up the way that Jaden McDaniels did in this series. He did it, Jim. Here's the thing that impressed me most, and I wrote about this and I was thinking about this last night as I was trying to process it. We paid a lot of attention to what Jaden said after Game 2, to what he did in Game 4. And it kind of was in the context of here's this guy who's just shooting from the hip and he doesn't care and he's saying it like it is. And I think there was an element of that. But I also really believe that after Game 2, he looked around in that locker room and he saw Ant was hurting and he saw Nas was hurting and he saw Io was wondering about his calf and he saw a team that was kind of hanging on by a thread and battling and doing everything it could. But I think he looked around and said, all right, I'm going to take some of the burden off of you by putting it on me. And when he said what he said, it turned the spotlight onto him and away from everyone else. And he doesn't necessarily like to be in that role, but he took it on because he could. And there was an incredible amount of confidence and even maturity in that moment, I think, for Jaden to say, this is what my team needs from me. And so I'm going to do it. I'll take it on, guys. They'll all talk about me for the next 3 or 4 days. You guys do you. You guys get yourselves together and I'll absorb this. And I don't know that he planned on it getting to the level that it did, but it did, and then he backed it up. And so to watch him evolve in his standing in that locker room and his standing in this league to come to a position where he could accept that responsibility and that burden and then deliver on what he said he was going to do, it's legendary. It's the kind of performance that if one day, 20 years from now, they're hanging number 3 in the rafters, this game and this series is going to come up at right near the top of his resume of why he's up there. It was incredible.
No doubt. Rudy.
Validating, I'm trying to think of the other words for it, but just a counterpunch to all the haters. I mean, there has been no one in the history of Jokic's career who has defended Jokic the way that Rudy did over this series. Jokic still put up his points. He still was productive, but there was never a time in this series, maybe outside of Game 5 a little bit, but there was never a time in this series that I felt like Nikola Jokic was grabbing this series and taking control of it. And that is because of Rudy Gobert. And I think that Rudy Gobert played a better series than Nikola Jokic did, which is unfathomable to say. When you look at a damn near triple-double in Game 6 with some of the passes that he was making
the hook pass around a defender to the three-point line. I really had to check myself after that one.
And then capping it off by making 2 free throws at the end to really kind of ice the game. The way that he flummoxed the unflummoxable Jokic, I mean, it was a legacy-defining performance. I mean, this is a guy who forever was sort of lampooned as you can't play him in the playoffs, as he's so one-dimensional, he's overrated as a defender. But this series is the one that you say, this is Rudy Gobert. This is a generational defender, maybe the best defensive player of this generation, coming to the fore at 33 years old and taking out the best offensive player of this era, and neutering the Nuggets in it by doing so. Like, I walked out with him last night and he was walking with a giddy up in his step, and rightfully so, because that was the kind of performance that really does turn the haters around, and he had a legion of haters, so good for him.
Neutering the Nuggets could be a podcast for this network. We'll have to look into that.
Right.
Terrence Shannon Jr.
I mean, explosive. Like that was the one word that comes to mind. I think about him being thrust into this opportunity just a couple of days or a day after Chris Finch essentially called him out. And there are players, and I don't think Terrence Shannon Jr. enjoyed that. I don't think that it was something that he looked at and thought kindly of when Chris Finch was so blunt in his assessment. But I think that there was a little bit of Herb Brooks in Chris Finch with that approach. And he pushed a button in Terrence Shannon Jr. that unleashed hell on Denver. And I do think that it was a case of Finch essentially being forced to put him out there. But however you get your opportunity, you have to deliver on it. And Terrence Shannon Jr. was an absolute wrecking ball in that game. And you and I had talked about this in the show before leading into Game 6. And I did say I want to see Terrence Shannon Jr. minutes because I don't think that there's anyone on Denver that can cover him. Mm-hmm. And there was no one on Denver that could cover him. He was too athletic. He was too strong. He hit the 3 in the corner, but he mostly just put his head down and got to the rim over and over and over again. And I think he's the first player in this century to have 24 points and no turnovers in his first playoff start of his career. And so you just could not have asked for anything more from him. And he gave them everything they had. And that's the kind of performance that makes coaching staffs look at him and say, okay, there is more to this than what we even imagined, and I will think you would see him a lot more in San Antonio.
3 topics down, 3 to go. Again, we're not going to do full ads because this is a quick hit bonus episode, but we do want to thank Aquarius Home Services. We want to thank Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood, which also sponsors Mark Rosen's show. We want to thank Great Clips, new to our network, and that you are seeing some great clips circulating with Jon talking about the Wolves on social media. Thanks to TSR Injury Law, the OGs, 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME if you need their help. True Vision Institute, which is the reason Jon isn't having to wear glasses during these shows, and sglambchops.com, sglambchops.com. I wear their stuff all the time, so does Jon, and great to see them enjoying themselves at the game on Thursday night. Next 3 topics. Finch.
Just shut up, everyone. Stop it with the ridiculous Finch criticisms that flooded my mentions all season long. This is a coach who knows what he's doing. This is a coach who can prepare his team for these first-round opponents as well as any coach in the league, that every single time they enter the playoffs, it is always, these Timberwolves are never going to beat the Suns, the Lakers, the Nuggets. And not only do they beat them, they outclass them by a wide margin. And of course, the players deserve a lot of credit for what they do to make this happen. But Chris Finch and his coaching staff, Mike Inori, Pablo Prigioni, Kevin Hansen, Elston Turner, everyone there, Chris Hines, everyone there puts everything they have into these game plans, and they come out in these first round series and take their opponent apart. And this was his defining moment because the Nuggets were prohibitive favorites in this series. They had won 13 straight games. They had the number 1 offense in the league, and the Wolves were really banged up and got even more banged up in the course of the series, losing Dante DiVincenzo, losing Anthony Edwards, not having Ayo Dosunmu and Kyle Anderson for Game 6. And they just kept coming after the Nuggets. They won that series because they wanted these games more than the Nuggets did, and that's part of the culture that Chris Finch instills in this group. And so there is no more belly aching about him. I don't want to hear it. Of course he has faults. Of course there are frustrations you can have with him about maybe who he plays and who he doesn't, or things of that nature. But he is cemented as a playoff tactician, as the kind of coach that deserves the benefit of the doubt throughout an entire season, that he's going to have his guys ready to go when they need to be ready to go. And that's in the playoffs. And so no more of the belly aching, no more of the complaining, no more of the calls for firing him. This guy is a really, really good head coach, and he knows what buttons to push to get his guys to go forward. And so, just I tip of the cap to him, and I know the kind of criticism that he's been under, and he just answered the bell to an incredible degree when you look at what they were able to overcome within this series and still win comfortably. There's not many coaches in the league that'll do that, folks. That's just the bottom line.
Well said. 2 more topics. Any chance of Ant returning during this series?
I think there is, yes. I think that Anthony Edwards is doing a bunch of rehab on his knee and fully intends to and wants to play in this next series. Chris Finch did say on the record before Game 5 that if they can extend this playoff run, that they believe that Anthony Edwards will get back. I do not expect him back in Game 1 against San Antonio on Monday. I think that sometime in the middle of this series, towards the end of this series, is a reasonable target for Anthony Edwards. And so, you never know how his body is totally going to respond. But as of right now, I know that Ant is pushing to get back, and they are working very hard to try and make that happen.
Last topic. Thanks to everyone who listens and watches. These shows are also available on YouTube. The Spurs matchup. Mm-hmm. Other than Wemby, is there anything that scares you about the Spurs? Does Wemby have to be phenomenal for the Spurs to win? And does Gobert have a chance to limit his effectiveness the way he has done against Jokic?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly there are more facets to the Spurs than just Wemby, although he is the major one. They won 62 games. They are an incredible team. They have a lot of the things that Denver didn't. So Denver didn't want to play in that series. Like they didn't want the series at all. Jamal Murray was an embarrassment. Nikola Jokic wouldn't play any defense. And their role players were just not up to the task. San Antonio, they're going to walk into San Antonio for game 1 on Monday night and face a team that wants to tear you limb from limb. They have rim protection where Denver had none. They have physicality on the perimeter where Denver had none. And so there is a lot to adjust to and to figure out with this group and many more challenges than the Nuggets presented. And so it's going to be an incredible mountain for them to climb. Their advantage will be that this is a team in the Timberwolves that has been there before, knows how to navigate the ups and downs of a series. And the Spurs are just really, really young. And they just won a series against Portland, which was good. But the deeper you go, the better your opponent is, the more glare is on you. And so will Castle and Harper and a lot of these young guys really respond in those moments and be able to sustain that kind of effort and that kind of efficiency? That will be the question, and that will be something that the Wolves will try to exploit. Gobert, I mean, the way that he is playing right now and what he did to Jokic, I'm not going to rule anything out with Wemby, but Wemby is a whole different beast. So it's going to be a different challenge. I mean, during the regular season, Julius Randle actually had a little bit of success against Wembanyama. And so I would imagine they kind of change up their looks a little bit, whereas they just went Gobert on Jokic. I think Wemby will see several different looks. I think, they're going to find the resistance much, much stiffer with San Antonio. I still think they can win the series if they get Ant back relatively healthy, kind of before it's too late. They are going to find an energy level of this opponent to be so much higher than Denver that I imagine it's going to be startling for them in game 1.
Great stuff, John. Blast watching those games at Target Center with you. We have more to go. It's been and you know what? You're in that locker room last night, and there's just a great vibe between the players. The way they josh with each other, the way they talk about each other. And I thought, Jaden sticking up for Terrence Shannon Jr. at the podium, the way Connolly talks about everybody, Rudy. It's a fun group to be around. So it would be great if we keep doing this for a few more weeks.
Very cool. One other thing cool just to touch on quickly. Every single player wore a Dante DiVincenzo jersey to the game. This is a team during the regular season that you looked at and are they really all together? Are they really all connected? And I just think that has changed remarkably since the playoffs began, and it does feel like a group that is all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, and that's really fun to see. It's it's been a bear of a season for them to navigate, for them to figure out, but it is a bunch of really good guys. There's not a jerk in that locker room, and I think they are finally finding whatever little secret sauce that it takes for them to come together, and that's kind of spurring them forward. So we'll see what happens in the next round with it.
Well, spoiler alert, I have a column coming out saying that they should have lost more during the regular season. They should have rested people more because it didn't matter. All you needed was a 6 seed. But we can talk about that more on Tuesday. Again, the full version of the Jon Krawczynski Show we will do next Tuesday between games 1 and 2. For today, thanks to John for all of his work. Thanks to our producers at TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.